Hey guys, and welcome back to Gregtech New Horizons. What is the one chemical element none of us can live without? Oxygen, which we currently now have 0 of. It seems that the overclocks and machine additions I added between episodes has now caused us to run out of oxygen. Oh yeah, I did also get these things running, we'll get back to those in a second. But yeah, these two chemical reactors here, one for sulfuric acid, which does need quite a bit of oxygen, and also one for quicklime dust. And this even here is something that we can't live without, as it's also used in our diesel engines. So we are going to dedicate a GT++ electrolyzer to this process, and I think it's appropriate to put this next to hydrogen, which I've just now realised is actually on a chunk boundary here. So maybe we find a new location for both of these things. Okay, I think I found an okay spot next to the tree growth simulator. Although there is one step that I'm missing here. We are also going to need an extractor since we get sugar beets and not just straight sugar from the farm. We're totally going to make this machine IV, the Dejuicer Device of Doom D123. I love that name. Yeah, we already have IV power in the area anyway, so I don't feel like transforming down there for one machine. No doubt it is overkill though, since eventually we'll catch up to the buffer that we have on sugar beets. But how can you pass up the Device of Doom? Oh yeah, now we're talking. Now we're getting some oxygen, look at that. So when we electrolyze sugar, we also get some carbon. We are currently like, I don't know, we have way more carbon than we know what to do with because of this thing. And this comes from charcoal dust, which we're producing out of the distillation towers. So charcoal is basically free for us, although I still don't really want to void it. So we're going to store it in a drawer down here, probably with just max upgrades, and we'll put a void upgrade on the very last slot. You never know with this game, you never know. We also get some water out of this as well. Oh, I forgot to lock this. We should get some water out of this. And this we're pretty safe just to void, so that'll go in a trash can. And because we need so much oxygen throughput, we are going to put the P2P straight on the tank here. And I think, yeah, why not? Let's go for an IV pump at the bottom. Although we do want to make sure we have block input on this, just in case the P2P decides to send some fluids in here, if for whatever reason this ends up empty. So yeah, that should be a pretty robust system for oxygen. Probably have to upgrade this tank as well, actually. Now I guess we just move over hydrogen. You know, maybe this extractor wasn't actually that overkill. It seems that it's just enough to keep up with this electrolyzer at IV. At least our buffer here is actually filling up, so we are overproducing on oxygen, which is what we want. And I've also moved over hydrogen here, which we have also dedicated a fluid P2P to. And remember, this is made from water, which we get from a reservoir. We could have recycled it on this one, but I didn't want to rely on this to make hydrogen. And we also feed this methane from our fluid P2P here. But this is not really something I wanted to spend a great deal of time on today. There, at least that tidies it up a little bit. Hey, so this is a bit of a weird transition. It's actually been a week for me since I've logged in here. And we've logged into a little bit of a problem. As you can see, our stored EU is going down very, very quickly. We're losing over 1 million EU per second, I think, from what it looks like anyway. And I think, among other things, it's the vacuum freezer that's stealing all of the power right now. And the reason the vacuum freezer is so busy right now is we have a completed Naquadah Line here. So I did actually start most of this episode before I left and tried to set this thing up, although that didn't go very well. So let me just briefly explain how this works. So from where we left off last time, this chemical reactor here makes Naquadah adamantium solution, which is sent through the Neutron Activator, or this machine here, at between 200 and 230 MeVs. Think of the MeVs as just basically an alternate power source. So this thing is fed Gregtech power through a Neutron Accelerator instead of an energy hatch. Oh, and you don't want to see the recipe for this thing. This was this was a bit of a mess to make, but we got there in the end. Anyway, we're given this IV power. So whenever you power this machine, the MEVs will constantly increase, and whenever you get to 1200, I believe we get an explosion. So to prevent that, we have a machine controller connected to a neutron sensor on the Neutron Accelerator, and the neutron sensor is less than 225 MEVs. It's a little hard to explain, but basically it tries to keep it at 225 MeVs, which is between the minimum and maximum thresholds of the recipe requirements here. And on the outputs of this machine, we get some adamantine dust, which we can electrolyze, some Naquadah oxide mixture, which gets recycled into the middle of this chain, as well as this concentrated sludge dust, which then goes through the next Neutron Activator at between 460 and 480, which is what this machine here is for, and this gives us 3 other dusts which we'll use later on, but for now we just send them back into applied energistics. The fluid that we get out of the first Neutron Accelerator is then autoclaved with sodium hydroxide, and this will give us Naquadah dust. We are already at over 5,000 Naquadah dust, which I think is actually just a 1-tick recipe along with some carbon, and this will give us some straight Naquadah ingots. Although as you've seen earlier, the vacuum freezer here is not able to keep up with this. especially all the other blast furnaces we now have running. So the first project for today is to fix this, because, well, we need a vacuum freezer. So there is basically two options, well, three options that we have here. We could go with the GT++ cryogenic freezer, which is the freezer equivalent to the blast furnace upgrade that we made last episode. Although similar to this thing, which takes blazing pyrotheum, the freezer takes gelid cryotheum, which is not something that we can very easily automate. The second option is to spam a bunch of these 3x3 vacuum freezers. Or the third option is the mega vacuum freezer, which takes 64 of these regular vacuum freezers. Let's see if we can order 64 of these things. Oh yeah, 192 electric HV pumps. Oh, that's so many wafers to go through as well. Okay, nearly 200 EV circuits. Yeah, we best get this thing started if we want this to happen anytime soon. This poor little circuit assembler is going to have a hard time here. I believe we also need 1,000 or 900 and something frostproof machine casings. We'll go for 1,000, which is 7,000 aluminium ingots. Even after starting that craft, we're left with over 100k aluminium, so I'm not worried about that at all. And the rest is just the usual input buses, output buses, energy hatches, and placement. Where do we actually want this thing? Actually, does this produce any pollution? It doesn't look like it does. Normally it shows on the tooltip. Yeah, I guess other than that, we've got a whole lot of waiting on crafting to do. Wait, 900 seconds for this recipe? Okay, well, in the meantime, I guess we're gonna take a trip to Mars. And we're here to pick up our miner, which I believe has finished. Yes, it looks like it. So what we're looking for here is mica, and it's actually one of the most rare ore veins, if I remember correctly. And I don't recall seeing any near our old base here that we haven't already mined. Yeah, nothing's jumping out at me right now, even though it's been a week. I guess we keep looking here, but this new prospector should make this quite quick. Aha, we got one. Nice. That really didn't take too long at all. We just need to remember to set some filters here ore processing, since I don't think we've actually mined this out since we had this set up, which actually just kind of shows you how long mica lasts once you're able to find it, right? Okay, I know this thing is called the mega vacuum freezer, but I mean, does it really have to be this large? It's a bit overbearing where I've placed it, don't you think? But it works, and it does 256 items in parallel, I believe. At least that's the way I'm interpreting this quest here. Let me know if I'm wrong on that, actually. But yeah, the reason it's here is we have easy access to LUV power. And I've also just added it onto this P2P connection, since we had some connections spare, we had some channels spare. And I don't see us adding any more channels down the end of this line. So we have the same setup that we had on our old vacuum freezer here. We have a storage bus on the highest priority, connected to a type filter for hot ingots. And then this output ME bus, which I've been actually trying in a few different places around the base. And instead of this bus having an internal inventory, it just outputs straight into the applied energistics connection that it's connected to. So now we can take out all the hot ingots from our system, and they should end up in this input bus. And of course any new hot ingots that we get out of the blast furnaces. So honestly, this doesn't really fix our power problems, but I'm hoping that we can just sort of micromanage this. At least until we get our donut and we get fusion power up and running. But basically our situation is that we need our fusion reactor now. That's basically our next goal that we're working towards. And for this we need lots and lots of superconductors, as you know. One of the uses for the superconductors is for 32 superconducting coil blocks. And to make these coils we also need something called molten trinium, which we should be getting out of ore processing from one of the planets. Yeah, we have a very limited supply here, although I think it's going to be enough for us. We just need to be able to blast furnace this, however we need a new set of coils. Our HSSS coils here are not enough heat capacity to be able to smelt this material. And the next coil in progression is actually going to be Naquadah, which actually we now have the ability to smelt and cool off in large quantities. However, before we go creating the coil blocks, which is also going to use a lot of our mica actually, it's actually 32 foils per coil block, I would like to set up a new fluid handling system for our assembler actually. So we have a new module addition here on our base, for the time being just with 3 fluid extractors at HV, along with 3 fluid tanks and 3 drawers for buffer. So what we want with this system is to be able to fill any amount of volumetric flask, And then, for example, recipes in assemblers that take some unique fluid, like most of the coil blocks take some sort of fluid, most of which we don't want to have on passive, like we do over here with, for example, glowstone, soldering alloy, and redstone. These we just keep passively stocked as fluid. Although things like Trinium and, I don't know, fluxed electrum, we're not going to have these passively creating fluid for us. So instead we're going to melt it on demand and fill it in volumetric flasks, which will then unload on the assembling side, and we'll use that in the recipes instead. So we're running up some power and applied energistics connections, and then from the interface we encode the pattern something like this. So this, for example, is for tin, molten tin. We give it an empty volumetric flask for 144 millibuckets, which is equivalent to 1 ingot, along with the ingot itself. When we make the request, the applied energistic system will send both of the items into the drawer. The flask is blacklisted on the insert of the fluid extractor and whitelisted on the tank. And then the ingot will get melted, the fluid is sent on the fluid channel of this fluid conduit. And then both the fluid and the empty flask end up in the tank, which then fills it and then goes back into the interface. It's probably going to be too quick to catch, but let's request a few of these things and maybe we can get to see this thing in action. There, it melted it, and I think it actually already completed the craft. Yeah, it's already gone. So yeah, we only have 3 of these machines set up for this, and as far as I know, we don't need any higher tier than HV. I could be wrong about that though. We may need some higher tier fluid extractors to melt some of the higher tier materials. For the assembler side, we are actually using our precise assembler here, which is super fast and can also parallelize the crafts. So we have a new interface here, which is for the assembler with flasks, and this is going to be for our coil blocks. All the coils we're going to automate in this. And we can add more in the future for different assembler recipes which take fluid. So the way these patterns are encoded is we are filling the volumetric flask with the exact amount of fluid that we need for 1 coil. In this case, it's just 1 ingot of molten HSSS. When this is requested, all the items end up in this chest. The flasks are then blacklisted right and whitelisted left. And we also want to make sure that we ignore NBT data on these, which means that we need the advanced item filler. And somewhere in this crafting process it takes a zombie head, which I had to actually go out and farm in one of those roguelike dungeons, as we seem to have run out of zombie heads for fillers. So the flasks end up left and then into the input hatch, and the items end up in this input bus, which also has the circuit 3 for the coils. And again, we can add different input buses and things for different assembler recipes which also take fluid. But for now, we're only doing circuit 3 recipes, or all the coils basically. So that means that we can request our 16 Naquadah coil blocks. And they should all just craft automatically now, including the fluids. In fact, I know they craft automatically since I've already switched out one of our blast furnaces here. It was actually a few hours ago. I've been AFK a little bit, doing some things outside of the game. And oh yeah, these things are still full. I basically just loaded them up with superconductor base, along with some indium as well. Looks like it's still crafting. But yeah, the second set of coils we're going to switch out for this one. And the spare set of HSSS coils is going to go in this blast furnace here, which makes us platinum metallic powder dust. This EBF runs pretty much constantly in our base here. So it'll be nice to get the extra EU discount I believe that we can get from HSSS. There we go. And I think it actually gives a speed increase as well, doesn't it? That seems faster to me, I'm not sure. So yeah, we're going to do a bit of a shuffle here with the coil blocks. This one is going to get nichrome. The other Volcanus is going to get the other set of Naquadah. And who's going to get this HSSS coil? The problem with these ones is they're wall sharing, so we need actually a double set of coils if we want to upgrade any of these ones. So maybe actually we just put them away, and we'll find a use for them soon enough. Yeah, so since it's going to be, I don't know how many hours before we can get fusion, since we still need to smelt our Trinium, which, by the way, I noticed also takes ZPM tier. Yeah, we need to be at ZPM with this, along with the Naquadah coils. So I have already crafted up a new LUV energy hatch, so we'll just double up the LUVs to make ZPM power. And at the same time, I picked up the rest of these quests that we were missing in LUV. We had to hold enough superconductors. I think it's only 60 for the quest. But again, we need thousands and thousands of this wire for fusion. I think we're going to take a little break from our fusion grind right now, and we'll save that for next episode. I'm fairly confident we can get there by then. But one of the other things I mentioned was our maintenance situation. So after I AFK'd a bit, I did go around and check all of our machines. And I would say a good 6 or 7 of them actually required maintenance, which is... that's really not a good sign. That's not what you want to see. And while we could technically make the auto maintenance hatch, it takes 2 LUV robot arms, and this doesn't actually fix all the problems either. I think we have to actually supply this with items. So it's not feasible right now. There is another solution though. There is another solution, kind of. It is a slightly more manual solution, but it's one that means that we don't have to go around and check every single machine. Actually, you know what? I should just use the water bucket, right? Yeah, that totally works. Oh man, these roasters. So what we are going to be doing here is basically setting up a little display panel. I would like to have this quite central in the base, so I'm thinking maybe this space here. And we're basically going to fill this with a lot of these display panels. Since with these displays you can actually filter out what sort of information you want to see out of the metadata. And buried in amongst one of these things is requires maintenance, so we can easily figure out which machines in our base need maintenance this way. Okay, slight change of plan here. I've been messing around with some of these options regarding the information panels. Instead of the sensor cards for each machine, I think we're going to actually make needs maintenance covers for these things, since we can have a little bit more control. Although most of the time I think we'll just stick with the basic one issue, so that it will emit a redstone signal whenever there is any maintenance at all. We're then going to send that through wireless transmitters or wireless redstone, and each machine can then just be hooked up to a lamp controlled by the redstone or an information panel. I was trying to get this to actually work without a sensor card inside, but I think you actually do need the sensor in it. Although it doesn't matter for what we're going to be doing which machine we actually link it to, so we can technically link them all to the same machine, since all we want is to be able to output text from this thing. So honestly, it's basically like placing a lamp and a sign above. That combined with the fact that it's very hard to read actually, if we have this always on, and we were to also show line 5, which has the problems in it, or in other words, maintenance issues. If we were to fill a room full of these information panels, and we had all of them displaying text this size, I mean, it's very hard to read which ones exactly have maintenance. Instead, it's easier actually to read when they're all off, and then we'll turn them on whenever something needs maintenance. I think mostly we just have to pay attention to how we label things. That's going to be the most important thing out of all of this. It's all well and good being able to turn lights on whenever something needs maintenance, but if we don't know which machine that corresponds to, then, I mean, that kind of defeats the purpose, right? Oh, I think this is going to turn out quite cool, actually. I have started building out this little prototype system here. One thing that I'm learning, though, is this is very, very tedious to set up. So, basically, what we have here is basically just a dummy machine. This is just something that we can set the Gregtech sensor kits to. And this is so that we can put in each information panel. So what we need to do here to get these things started is we're waiting on some more receivers. It looks like they've got stuck. Oh, I see. It's these volumetric flasks over here at the precision assembler. Since the receivers take liquid ender, I've started making use of our volumetric flask system actually. Although some of these items actually require the 250 liquid ender, which I have not set the insert filter here for going back into the interface. Although technically on this blue channel, like, we don't even need a filter for this, do we? Oh, I can hear the machine. I don't know if that comes through in the video, but these machines have such a weird sound. I think that should have completed the craft, right? Yeah, now it's stuck making flasks, which I bet is more filters over here. Yeah, the empty volumetric flasks ended up in the fluid extractor. I was afraid this would happen. I think it's because we only have the basic filters on here and we need the advanced ones with the zombie heads. Oh, we need a mob farm. Oh, we need so many things. We'll have to switch those out with advanced filters to stop that from happening, I think. So yeah, in order to get this to function, we basically need a receiver for each information panel. And we have all of these receivers set to 1000 plus, which is going to be our frequencies for all of their maintenance. So next one in the chain is 1005. That is going to respond to this LHE right here, which also has the maintenance cover on normal mode. But we'll invert it just so that we can see this in action, basically. There, so that sends a redstone signal to this 1005 frequency receiver. And right now it's showing the chemical reactor that we linked it to, but we really don't need any of this information, so we turn off all of these things. It's so many clicks. But basically we're naming this 1005, the frequency, and then this is going to be LHE2. There, so because we inverted it, the light is on, and we can very easily tell that LHE2 needs maintenance, which we would then perform maintenance on. That would turn off the redstone signal, and that would also turn off the display here, and indicate that we don't need to do any maintenance on our machines. Yeah, so the only problem is actually setting all of these up, and because we don't have any of them set up already, it's going to be a lot of filtering and crafting. All the covers and things are not cheap either. Each maintenance cover takes an emitter at MV, and considering the amount of machines that we have, that's going to quickly add up, as well as the information panels. I was considering using the advanced information panel, but this is an HV circuit plus some carbon, plus a color upgrade, which is another HV circuit. That's on top of this cost with 2 LVs plus 2 computer monitor covers for 1 regular industrial information panel. One of the other things is we're going to have very ugly faces on our machines now. Since a lot of these are now going to have 2 covers on them, basically. One fluid detector cover to turn the machine on. At least on a lot of these LCRs, we have some sort of detection system to stop voiding. And then on top of that, we're adding the wireless receivers, and it's going to be quite ugly on the machines themselves. We also have to make sure we set strong redstone signal so that it can pass through the block using the solder and iron. So let's say it takes like a minute and a half per machine, not accounting for the fact that there's some errors and I'm totally going to forget the frequencies that we're on and things. That's going to be a very long time to set this up. So yeah, I think it's going to be worth it though. I'm going to give it a shot. But yeah, I think this is something I'll try to get finished off between episodes. And yeah, hopefully next time we can get our fusion reactor. It's going to be a lot of blast furnace work. In fact, I may add a few more additions to the blast furnace array just to help with this. But yeah, I appreciate the patience on this episode. I maybe should have mentioned last time, but I was on a trip actually. It's kind of strange coming back after a week of not playing, but I'm getting into the swing of things again. I think at this point though of Gregtech, things are going to start taking a lot longer. We kind of knew we would get to this point, right? I mean, episodes just take forever to make now. At least if we want to make any progress in them anyway. Which means I think it's almost about time for a new series. I'm thinking that's going to go alongside Gregtech, and I've had actually a few people asking me where the end of Gregtech is going to be. What is our goal for New Horizons, basically? And well, yes, Stargate exists. You're not going to see me go for Stargate, at least not solo anyway. That's basically half a year of AFKing, and that's not something I'm up for. But yeah, I want to at least get to UHV tier, which we're still a long, long ways away from. We still have another, 3.5 chapters, ZPM, UV, and UHV, which is where we get the final rocket. It would be really nice to have some sort of rocket museum. We can line up all the rockets in a row. I think that would be pretty cool. We may go for some extra challenges and things along the way as well. But yeah, we've still got, as I mentioned, a long way left in Gregtech New Horizons. Oh, and it looks like we've already got maintenance. And a broken sensor card, it looks like. Yeah, can you tell this isn't finished yet? Yeah, Turbine 5, I think, is this one right here. That doesn't belong there. I think that's the crowbar. Yeah, run in perfectly. Awesome. Alright. I've still got a lot of fixing with this system to do. I think we're going to wrap things up here. Thank you again for watching, and I'll see you all soon for some more Gregtech New Horizons.